YouTube, Awesome Writer here. In today's video, I am going to be talking about my favorite writer series, Kamen Rider Gotchard, and my favorite Toku character of all time, the Great Hotaro. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, you can obviously tell by the title. I don't even know the purpose of this fake out, but I wanted to have a little bit of a venting discussion about the series. As of this recording, we're 8 episodes in. If this is timed correctly, it should be going out right after my most recent episode review, which was episode 7 or 8. And obviously, we still have miles to go. You know, the show could improve, as with all shows, and we're pretty early days, but thus far, it hasn't given me a lot to be excited about, and it doesn't seem like there's necessarily a lot to be excited about around the corner, sans one thing which I'll talk about. But first of all, I wanted to just talk about why my disappointment in the show in particular feels a little bit worse. I feel like for the most part everyone seems pretty lukewarm on the series. I haven't seen an enormous amount of hate, just kind of, again, like lukewarm feelings. And I want to be clear, I don't necessarily hate the show. Like, I've reviewed the show kind of middle of the road. I think I only gave like 1, 2 because like objectively it's like a 3 out of 5. It's fine. It's not like offensively bad or anything, but I just am getting increasingly annoyed by multiple things in the show, how boring it is, not to mention our protagonist, who might become my most hated protagonist by the end of all this. But again, to set the stage for my personal disappointment, as you may know, if you don't, in the channel, I've been having on and off Toku fatigue. You know, I've been following it so long, it's a very formulaic show, you know, Sentai and writer, so it gets on your nerves easily, not to mention the community isn't the best all the time. So I've been kind of dipping in and out. I stopped Revice, I never came back to Revice for a while, I stopped Geats and I caught up, took me a couple times to finally get into it. I even stopped Dawn Brothers for a while, so I've been on and off Toku fatigue. It wasn't until recently in my Geats catch-up, my final Geats catch-up, that I finally got bit by the writer bug a little bit, and I was like really into it, because the good thing about Geats, you can see I'm a fan, I bought some shirts, was it reminded me why I like writer, showcasing things that I like about the series overall that kind of always happen, but it was also very different, which was a nice change of pace that I needed. And then after that, you know, I caught up and I was like, I'm still feeling it, let's catch up on Revice. Took me a minute to get in step with the series because I needed to get my bearings of where I was, and you know, thankfully for a clip show. Now I understand the point of clip shows, so I went back and rewatched a clip show. That's beside the point, I'm getting distracted. But anyway, once I did, that series wasn't perfect, but I really enjoyed myself, and I even watched some of the specials. Speaking of, that review is forthcoming. I put out something for you guys to leave your thoughts on, and I appreciate everyone that did. That review should be happening soon. I've already filmed the main part, I just need to film the part where I read your comments. Anyway, enjoyed Revice, even watched a couple other specials I was behind on. I actually made a list of specials I want to watch, and I was, you know, in a good Toku mood, and this happened to coincide with Gotchard being, like, announced. And I'm like, this is perfect timing. This is the first time I've been stoked for a writer in a long time. Loved the look of the suits, the concept, everything seemed really exciting. So it's extra disappointing, like, how mid the show is, and how much I dislike so many things, because it's kind of killing my Toku vibe, you know, because it is so many things that I hate about Toku, with the annoying protagonist that's like the clone of the 14th same protagonist, you know, the toy aspect really getting in the way, the general formula, not to mention it just being so dull, it's like really slowing that momentum down. So that's why I'm extra disappointed. But there's a couple things about why I think the show is so dull. I mean, it's very by the numbers, very generic. That's what I thought from the first episode, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. And I'm sure some newer fans, whether it's your first series or maybe just your third or whatever, probably aren't as burnt out. You know, I've been watching the show since Kiva, so obviously I'm gonna get burnt out easier, but it could be a good first writer show for people. I don't know, I can't really get into that mindset of like what it's like just coming to writer for the first time with this, you know, or just maybe this is your second or third year so you're not burned out. But it's very by the numbers, which doesn't necessarily have to be bad. But if I'm being honest, as of right now, there's nothing like pulling me in. They do have generic mysteries about the lore and the plot, but nothing that I'm really that engaged with. Like, even some of the most generic Toku shows, whether it's Sentai or writer, will often have something unique about them that I feel gives it its own flavor, and at least, even if it's very small, something intriguing about it that's all its own. And I don't feel that with Gotchard. I was trying to think of the closest comparison I could think of, and that was Saber in terms of like my enjoyment of the series. Now Saber's one where I also dipped out. And I did that the last 3 years, and it took me a long time to get back to that one. I was not feeling Saber at all for the first, I want to say, maybe 10 to 15 episodes. You know, and that one had the opposite problem of Gotchard, where Gotchard is like going nowhere fast, and Saber kind of fast-forwarded things really quick, where they did that betrayal arc, where they're like, how could Tomo betray us? I'm like, you've known him like 5 minutes. But anyway, Saber, when I caught up on it, I know that's a very flawed series, and it's not very popular, but I mean, there's a lot of problems with it. I have problems too. I actually wound up quite enjoying myself when I binged it later, so maybe that could happen with Gotchard. But with Saber, I wanted to bring this example up because even with Saber, when I quit that show because I was feeling very similar, like annoyed, like I want to stop watching it, there was at least a flavor to it with the mythology and unique things I was interested in. I'm like, I want to know what's going on with Caliber and what's going on with the backstory. And I don't feel any of that with Gotchard. I know it's there, but it's so base level, and we're so rarely touching on it that it's just not intriguing at all. Like, not every series is going to be as intriguing, but I mean, I'm barely thinking about it when the show is happening, which is just so frustrating. Not to mention, my other problem, of course, being our main character, who I'm so tired. I mean, you guys know I'm not a fan of the quirky, idealist, twerp character that writer and Toku tends to love. I'm never going to like that character. And again, this is probably something that I'm uniquely annoyed at because, again, I'm watching since Kiva, so after a while, it's kind of like being a roommate with someone for like over 10 years and they just won't shut up. Like, that's what it's like. So I'm extra annoyed by it. But my problem with it isn't even necessarily only because I don't like that character. It's because I feel like all these characters are just slight variants of each other. You know, this guy feels similar to Sento and M and Gio. Aruto especially. This dude feels like discount Aruto with the chemis instead of human gears. It's just like they feel like they're all the same person. They change a couple things here and there, and they all have that same attitude, idealist thing, catchphrase, and it's tiresome. Like, I do prefer a Geats protagonist, I'll be honest. In general, these are cool costumes. It sucks so often it's a little pathetic twerp on the inside of them. But I wouldn't want to see a Geats every year either. I wouldn't want to see them take Geats or Tendo from Kabuto and use that as the template and rearrange a couple things and it feel like the same person. I want to see a variation. So I'm tired of seeing that where this dude, he feels like Aruto, except something about the actor, no offense to him, but I just cannot stand this dude. Not the actor, but the character, just so annoying. All he does is like, chemis, it's just such a punchable face. It's just so annoying. And I don't know if this makes any sense, but I don't believe him. I don't believe in him. Like, even there are some energetic Sentai Reds or idealist Toku twerps that, even if they annoy me, their performance and the way they're written at least has me believing that they believe that, if that makes any sense. Whereas this feels like an AI generated, like they just typed in the algorithm, like Toku twerp that believes in chemis and humans, and he just says the same things over and over again. And I don't believe he's a real person that believes in these things. I think one of the best at that was Sento. Sento was kind of an idealist, his performance was more muted and balanced, but I really believed in him and could get behind what he thought, even if it was corny. So I just don't believe in him. That's a big problem for me with that, is I just don't buy him, and he's super annoying, and again, it's like the 12th same protagonist. And thinking about it, like last year, I think part of the reason we got Geats like the way he was is because we had Kawai. Kawai was, I would say, arguably a character that felt more like your traditional current main writer protagonist, where he's not like a badass or anything, he's a little bit more idealist, but he felt like a real person, and I believed in his goals. Like, I mean, I believe that he believed in it. And he also was balanced, where he wasn't like annoying about it. And he could be cool. I can't imagine Hotaro ever being cool. But my last problem I wanted to touch on has to do with like the toys and the forms. It's a little bit different this year because we're doing cards, so you're not buying, like, they're not coming out with metal set or switch sets or, you know, a vice stamp. It's like you buy them in packs. So it's a little bit different. But we always have this rush for all the ability forms, and I know I complain about this in every series because every time I'm putting together the review for this, I think back to Revise, I'm thinking back to 01, I'm like, I have the same complaint where they just rush through these ability forms, and I don't need them all to have a backstory, you know, because it makes more sense to save the backstory for like the main forms, the super forms, stuff like that. But it doesn't hurt. Like, even the cactus one, that I'm going to remember that episode, so sometimes give them a backstory, but that's not even the whole thing. You don't need a big backstory for every ability form because there's so many of them. I just wish they'd space them out. Like, I want an episode in between them. Like, debut Cactus Hawk, and then the next episode, he kind of mains that. He just uses that for the most, and then you debut another one. You know, just give it time to breathe. I get it, like, they have a schedule, and it's weird, though, because usually the schedule is because they have to line up when the form comes out to when they ship the toy, and I don't want to tell. Who am I to talk? They know what they're doing. Their formula works. It frustrates me, but the formula works. I do wish that they would just only line up the major stuff, like the main forms and Megazords or whatever, and not the ability forms. Like, you don't need to rush that, regardless. It's different, though, this time, because it comes in packed, right? Like, there's no, like, Hawk, Cactus's cards didn't just come out this week, right? I haven't been following the booster packs, so it's very frustrating, especially the way we've had this twice in a row now where we've debuted a new form and then we end up not even using that form to finish the fight. Like in this last episode, we debuted this new purple form where I can't even remember what its name was, but we went back to Cactus Hawk because that made sense because that's what the episode was about. And it just screamed like they needed to put that in there because of the corporate stuff. And I know Toku is effectively, just at the end of the day, a toy commercial, but sometimes you can hide it better. And I think that the fact that I can feel them rushing through it and their forms they feel so meaningless and they have this weird pacing to them just takes me out of it even further. Like, at the end of the day, this is seeming like a very negative video, and it is. But I don't hate the series. I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. That's kind of the thesis statement of this video, is I just wish it was better, because I was so stoked about Rider and stuff again, and I'm just finding my patience being worn thin. We're early days, though. Like I said, Saber turned around for me. Still had a lot of problems, but I found some stuff to enjoy, so I'm hoping the same thing happens here. I do find it to be funny now that one of the things that was rumored, which is now confirmed to be true, there was going to be some sort of Decade tie-in, and I rolled my eyes. I'm sick of all this Toku crossover garbage. I didn't want it. Didn't want it. But then I forgot it was happening, and I was just reminded when the pictures of Legend came out, and now I'm kind of excited just because it means something's happening. I feel like that says a lot about how I'm viewing the show right now, where I'm excited about something I did not want solely because something interesting is about to happen. I'm like, I still don't need these series to connect, but man, I'm excited for something to happen. But I hope it turns around. I really do. I hope it turns around, or at least next year's a little bit better. Sentai has been on a really nice streak of innovation, in my opinion. I actually don't think we've had a bad Sentai since Kara Major. Kara Major is included in the good Sentai. Not that Re-Soldier was terrible, but you know what I mean. Like, I think that they've had quality, and since Zenkaiger, we've been really experimenting. So I think it would be nice for Rider to do the same thing. Some people mention, like, oh, Gotchard is nice back to basics after Geats. I'm like, but that was only one experimental series. Revice was a little different, but it was still basically Rider. I would love to see them take a page from Sentai's book and maybe try some different things in terms of the structure. But what do you guys think? Do you share some similar thoughts? Do you have your own grievances? Or are you in love with Gotchard and you hate everything I said? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps to ring that bell to get notifications for my videos. Dawson Rider, signing out.